Hey, this is Zac.
And I'm Clint, and we wanted to thank Exoterra for sponsoring this episode of Colubrid and Colubroid Radio.
Exoterra is the industry leader in glass terrarium enclosures, and we are a big fan of getting to see the species we work with, both at home and at the university.
We utilize Exoterra caging here at Metazotics, and in addition to top quality terrariums, Exoterra offers an array of heating options, lighting, supplements, decor, and truthfully anything needed or wanted when keeping reptiles.
Thank you, Exoterra, for supporting Colubrid and Colubroid Radio. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Colubrid and Colubroid Radio. As always, Zac here, ready to talk colubrids and colubroids, and Clint is here as well. And we both have had interesting days. This is the sunshine in our incredibly busy, crazy-ass day. So, how you doing, man?
I'm doing all right, buddy. I mean, I've had a real good weekend. Things have gone very, very well out here lately. It's just that year-end like rush and prep for 2026, and it's a lot at the moment. I gave you a taste of it just a moment ago. Mm-hmm. I showed Zac one spreadsheet I'm currently in the middle of. It's enormous. But you know, hey, it comes with the gig, so not complaining.
Yeah. I think that you get secret nerd enjoyment out of it.
Oh, I love numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
you get giddy the way I do when someone hands me a dead crayfish.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's just your spreadsheet leads to wealth and satisfaction.
Somebody lied to you.
Yeah. Mine leads to a paper and me having to pay for it. So
yeah, I think what I like about some of it is numbers. It's funny because numbers don't lie.
Yeah,
but they do tell a story. Now they can be utilized to tell false narratives, you know. But I think what I like about what I'm doing now is it really does encompass so much because it takes analyzing data, which I enjoy, you know, doing that. Mm-hmm. I have to analyze previous data, take that to then make a plan and a prediction on, you know, just not off the numbers, but on everything I see happening and what I think is going to occur. And then the fun part after that is once that's locked in, then it's actually going out and doing the behaviors within the company, within the community, within, you know, the just on everything to make that prediction a reality. Even if all the external factors don't swing exactly the way I thought they would, we have to adjust to still get to that prediction, you know, this way or that. So,
No,
so totally. It's all, you know, I do get an enjoyment out of it, and I can't pretend otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw a wee smile on your face, then pure exhaustion in your eyes. I don't know.
Yep.
Anyway, okay, so we're going to do updates. I don't have many because we're basically in the dead of winter. One thing I will say here in the East is that we are actually having a somewhat normal winter. I said to my students, it feels like winter in the 90s. And they were like, oh, what was that like in the Ice Age? And I was like,
with the horses and the carriages.
Yes, exactly. I forgot that all of you were born after like 2005.
I have to say this real quick because of what you said. So my boys last night asked me if they could watch Stranger Things. They wanted to start watching it. And I'm like, yeah, you know, okay, let's do it. I need to watch the last season anyway. So, but I'll start on season 1 and watch it with you. So they start watching. I go, now the cool thing about this is you're actually going to see the time period that, you know, when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And it comes on and Dex goes, you know, the show doesn't look too bad for being so old. And I'm like, no, Dex, the show's not from when the time period they're showing you. It's
mm-hmm. No. Yeah, no, we're Stranger Things fans as well because of the nostalgia piece. And it's really kind of fun because I watch it, and like Kathy and I will like push pause and be like, "Oh, remember that?" And it's like a cereal box or something stupid. But I was talking to my students about that, and a couple of them, and they're like, "Yeah, it was just, how did you live that way?" And I was like, in a lot of ways, it was better.
Oh, I'm telling you, there was a piece. You didn't have
Mhm.
information at your fingertips like you do now,
Yeah.
but you also you didn't have a phone glued to you,
Heck yeah.
and screens, your
You can
eyes
get
glued to
away.
screens all the time. Yes.
You
And
can't get away.
they were riding on their bikes, and I'm like, look, see, that's how we would go see friends.
Mhm.
It wasn't talking online or playing. No, if you wanted to play a game, you had to ride your bike to somebody's house
Yeah.
and get them. So,
Anyway, all right, let's get out of our rocking chair.
yeah, about to say, get off my lawn.
Anyway, so only thing I have to report is I looked at my spring summer schedule in October, because that's when I have to, and had a mild. It just made me mentally numb, because when you're a scientist, one of the worst times, but no, it's just a pain in the butt, is when you have projects or grants that are ending at the same time they're beginning, because it's very different mindsets and different sets of responsibility. And I have 4 projects that are ending in the next 15 weeks. And then I have 3 projects that are starting in the next 15 weeks. And so I looked at that and thought, I can't possibly have the snakes come up like when they normally would. So I purposely delayed putting things down until this weekend, which gave me a couple more weeks so that I could get away, pray it stays cold, then bring them up and, kind of hit that sweet spot. So I was in the garage. With my new building up at the university, we have 2 walk-in refrigerators, which are clutch, because we can dial in the temperature right at 50. And
nice.
Because it was a restaurant, so these were beer coolers for the bar. So we ran our govies and they're working. So right now we have a bunch of turtles that we put into those. But the university snakes aren't here, and normally they're here. So it was really nice setting up brumation, because it only took up 1 shelf in the infamous corner where I'm normally floor to ceiling. So got everything dialed in. Then I got this thing. If you're on YouTube, you'll see it. I keep it right by my computer. Come on, technology. Where are we on the screen?
Slap it to get it.
You can see it. That's the temperature right now. God bless it. I'm at 45 in my corner. And that's the coldest. That's on the ground in the corner. So if I'm at 45, everybody else is at 50. So
that's awesome.
Everything's working out. So yeah. But I cannot believe that I'm putting snakes down for brumation. That's just, this year kind of went fast once the semester started. And it is finals week. Thank you, dear Lord, sweet baby Jesus. It is finals week. I have about 72 hours of grading, which will kind of rip my soul from my body. And then I've got my 4 weeks off, but all good scientists, that's when you actually get all the stuff you wanted to get done over the course of the semester that you couldn't, because you had to go to endless meetings and teach classes you didn't necessarily want to teach. So I am currently measuring dead crayfish. That's what my spreadsheets are loaded with. And I've got to name
mine better.
Yeah. Well, I get to name 2 new forms of life with mine. So that's that's kind of cool. I'm describing crayfish right now. So yeah. Anyway, so that's my update. What's up with you?
Right on. Well, we're coming off of the big Black Friday, event, and that went great. From a business standpoint, I guess this would tie into, the market update if I'm talking about trends. One thing I found interesting about this year's Black Friday, so we didn't do quite the volume in Chandler on Black Friday that we did the same day, Black Friday last year. But I was expecting that to a degree, because naturally we've got a second store open 30 minutes away now. There's going to be a little bit of cannibalism, just like during our anniversary sale. We experienced the same thing. However, the 2 combined still beat what that was. But what I did really enjoy was for the week, like the Chandler location still was positive to comp for the week. So even though that one particular day, the big day, wasn't as big as the year before, there was more business that came in that the week of. And so
Cool.
that was an overall win for sure. Um, it was a great day. The team did a great job. I mean, everybody that pitched in. I mean, we had volunteers as well. Our intern volunteered. I mean, it was a great day. So we had that, 2 weeks of prep going into it, and then probably 3 days of recovering and putting everything away,
Oh,
afterwards. Another like trend that I saw this year versus last is this year was very, very heavy habitat purchases. I mean,
cool.
it was not nearly as many animals out the door as last year. But again, it was. I like seeing this kind of mix shift because it tells me that it's not just hoarding animals. People are investing in continuing to upgrade
Yeah.
and do different things for them. So that was exciting. I really like seeing that trend take place.
No, that's
I,
cool.
I told you, Zach, that we celebrated a successful Black Friday week, and I did that. I celebrated by purchasing 23 more Gray Banded King
Yeah.
snakes.
Problem you have, sir. How
Yeah,
many? Oh, no. Let's do this. How many Alterna do you have now?
I don't know. I have to.
The correct answer is I have the Alterna that I have.
That's right. That's right. See, well, and here's the thing. I have a lot of Alterna, but I didn't have these Alterna.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? So they had to come home with me. They're going to be here tomorrow. So I think I'm getting 12 more adults and 11 babies. So
Oh,
yeah,
damn.
pretty exciting. It was localities I didn't have. So yeah. Corey's like, "Argh." So
Yeah.
but we also have. I've got 10 rhino rats coming tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, tomorrow, the day after, from a former guest on the show. So pretty excited about that. Um, I guess the other thing was we just came from the Lexington show. Did that this weekend, and we'll have an update that's kind of spawned from my time there. That show always treats us very well, and we had a fantastic weekend out there. And it was good. And I always say some of my favorite parts of going out and doing shows, it's not sales that take place, it's getting to talk to people, getting to see friends, and continuing to build a stronger network for some of the things we're looking to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
And that certainly played out, this weekend in Lexington. And again, we'll talk about that in a moment. So yeah, that's kind of what we've got going on out here.
Cool. Okay, you want to jump into our updates?
Sure. Do you want? Do you want me to? Do we want to do a Kluber Fest update?
Yeah. We need to do that.
Yeah, let's do that. So, for those who don't follow us on Facebook, shame on you. But if you're someone who doesn't have social media or didn't hear the news, we do not have our venue any longer. I'm trying to think. Did we go over this on the last show? Maybe I don't remember now.
We did this on the show with Dark Horse.
Okay. So we can't. That's right. We did announce we've got 5 cities that we're looking at.
Yeah.
And one of which is Cincinnati, Ohio. And during the Lexington show, I got to chat with a buddy of mine, who is, both of them were there, that happened to run the Cincinnati reptile show. The Cincy show that is very popular and has done well for a very long time at this point. And, because one of the things that I'm adamant about is if we're going into a city where there's already a show promotion taking place, we don't want to step on toes. This is community building. This isn't to come in and make anybody angry. So got to reach out and chat with them, and they were all for it. I mean, completely wanted to support Colubrid Fest. Derek, who runs that show, he goes, man, if we didn't have shows booked, the same day that you guys were having Colubrid Fest the last 2 years, we'd have been there. So he was all for it. So with some of the conversations that's taken place, we're now strongly looking at Cincinnati, Ohio. As it's moved as the front runner at this point, I
Yeah.
believe, for all three of us. The downside to Ohio would be no black rats.
Yep.
And there's some garter species that we wouldn't be able to do. But that's so far kind of the limitations that I know about. Go ahead.
Can I add one thing
Mhm.
just for something that was super important to all of us was, we did Indianapolis, then we did Fort Wayne. So we were kind of establishing this central Ohio or Indiana piece. If you don't know where Cincinnati is, look where Cincinnati is on a map. It is a tri-city with Indiana, and it is only 2.5 hours from Fort Wayne, and it's got to be closer. What is it, like an hour and a half from Indy? Something like that.
I know it's like 5.5 for me, I think.
Yeah.
Down here in Evansville. So yeah.
You're only adding a couple hours is what I'm trying to say here. And if we can land it, we haven't landed it yet, but and it's also the most centrally located of all of our cities.
I think it helps some of the Northeast people. I mean, it's
Yeah.
going to put it a little closer to them. It's going to be basically the same drive for anybody who's coming from the South. So, and if you're coming from far West, you're probably taking a plane ride anyway. It's going to have a large airport. It's kind of, and again, we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. You guys know, we like to stay very transparent and update everyone on where we're at, our train of thought. So, but the venue that looks to be, the possibility, if we can get the dates, and all that fun stuff, it's a hotel convention center.
Yeah, it's exactly what we wanted.
Yeah, it holds the reptile show right now. So they're okay with all that. It comes down to dates and I mean, if we're all able to stay under the same roof and all this in the same building, it's exactly what we've been after. So that's what we're looking at the moment. We're going to see what we can come up with, and we'll kind of go from there. So,
yep.
There is the Colubrid Fest update. All right, buddy. Do you want to jump into the science update since I've got the big one?
So, science updates, as always, brought to you by Rare Genetics Inc. Kayla and Ben and company are doing wonderful things to help all of us out. As noted, you're going to have to help me out, market guy. Do you remember what the discount is?
CCR 15%.
15. There you go. So by all means, use the code. Get your SNPs checked. That's what they're looking at, by the way. Single nuclear. Oh my God. I just had a nerd shut down brain. Polymorphism. There you go. Came back. Anyway, with that being said, we love what Kayla and Ben are doing. And I actually spoke with Ben, and Ben will be on the show as a full guest to talk about inbreeding and just basic genetics with colubrids early next year. So if that's a topic you want to hear about from the guy himself, it's coming. So that being said, I lied to you all. I believe in the last episode, I said, I'm going to do a journal article next time. But I got a new book, and it's Christmas time, and I want to support this author because this book's really good. It's out now. Buy it now. Don't mess around. Here it is. Dun, dun, dun. It's the second edition of Designer Morph's Western Hognose Snakes. Now, obviously, this book is special to me. Why? Because I'm writing a Hognose Snake book. And, here at CCR, we say this all the time. I don't view this as competition. I view this as inspiration. And it's a pretty damn good book. And the nice thing for me is the main focus is morphs. So in the back part of the book, if you take a gander, I am having a hard time making the camera work. Sorry if you're in your car. We got all the different morphs. That's not really working. And kind of explains what they are, a little bit on the origins of them. Good stuff. The other thing that's in this one is a very nice husbandry section. So I recommend, if you have hognose snakes, you breed hognose snakes, buy this book. The way that you buy it is a little bit interesting. You've got to go onto Facebook and you got to look up Designer Morphs as a page, or you're going to look up the author, who is John Barry. All righty. And he wrote what I consider to be the other really good hognose snake book that's out there. But
was there another book he wrote as well?
Yeah, he wrote. This is the second edition.
No. So before the hognose.
Yeah, he did designer morphs for boas and pythons.
That's it. I'm like, yeah. I know I have another book by him, but I couldn't remember
all
what it was.
Pythons and boa constrictors.
Gotcha.
I'm trying to see. It's not close to me. Damn it. Anyway, so it's, I don't know how much it was. It was 50 plus or minus $10, worth every penny. John will sign it for you. Get it in your hands. But I did the classic. I'm just going to skim this thing. And then the next thing you know, 3 hours had gone by and I had read half of it. So it's an excellent book for keepers out there that, you know, have the basics of hognose snakes down, but they want to elevate their keeping a bit. You know, there's a lot of little nuggets, as I call them, in there. And that's what I love about books like this is personal experience and wisdom gets thrown into a book like that. And you can't, you know, you can get that off the interweb, but it's just nicer to get it from someone who's dedicated a fair amount of their life. So by all means, it's an awesome addition to your library and it's brand new. Now, why do you need to buy now? Because I bought a copy of the first edition all the way back in 2019. Okay. I think it cost $30. I actually bought it at the Chiricahua Desert Museum, Bob Ashley's place in Rodeo, New Mexico. And I am such a nerd that I like to have two copies of my books. One I destroy and one that stays immaculate on the bookshelf. And so I'm getting ready to do the hognose snake book. And I thought I need to pick up another copy of that. And the cheapest I could find it 2 years ago was $110. So buy it now because there's a limited print run. It's going to go. And when it goes, it's gone. So there you go.
If there's anything we've learned.
Max just said $250 is how much the first edition costs. So, yeah.
You know,
all right.
If there's anything that we've learned, it's, you know, while books may not be the popular thing in the world, you know, at this point in today's day and age, in the herp community, books are a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen that for sure.
Yeah. So, by all means, want to support another person, you know, inspirational dude to me, John Barry. Got to message with him quite a bit. Yeah, pretty awesome stuff. So that's what I got. What do you have?
All right. Well, the market update, as always, is brought to you by the Show Me Marketplace and the Show Me Reptile show promotion. Mickey and his team have shows all over the country. So as we always say, if there's one near you, get in, support the vendors, support the Show Me show, support those who support us. And by us, we mean all of us in the colubrid community. Because as we all know, without Mickey and the Show Me team, Colubrid Fest would not happen. So
nope.
Get in, give them your support. All right, so this is going to be the first market update of the month, which means we've got some data to take a look at here. Let's bring this up. All right. Okay, so as always, let's start with the total number of ball python listings as well as the total number of listings. As we can see, and I know that some of you are listening, and trust me, I'll be mentioning numbers here in a moment. We can see the trend continues to follow the up and down pattern, but we're seeing that downward decline, you know, in ball pythons beginning in January of last year all the way to December of this year now. And then we have total snakes, and here's, you know, where while we still follow that same trend line, you know, as we've pointed out over the past few months, the gap is breaking a little more here, showing where, you know, other species are continuing to gain more and more of that market share. And I think that is definitely cool. We'll talk more about that. Oop. I don't know how to go back. Hold on. I just messed up. Oh, well. There's some numbers I'm going to miss. I'll have to see if I can go back through. So actually... backspace. How about that?
There you go.
All right. So just to give you some, you know, kind of year over year numbers, In December of last year, there were 34,700 ball pythons listed. I'm sorry, no, that's this year. 34,700 ball pythons. Last year, the same month, 40,450. So as we can see, a pretty substantial drop, from then to now. Total listings, last year there were 57,270. We're now sitting at 53,270. So we've got, roughly a little less than a 6,000 snake drop in ball python listings, but only a 4,000 snake drop in terms of overall listings. So again, shows that other species are continuing to have an upward tick. When it comes to colubrid listings, we're going to look at some of the graphs here as far as mapping them out. I believe that's bulls, pines, and gophers there. We've seen a pretty nice uptick in kind of beginning back in July, but peaked in November. A little bit of a downward curve from November to December. And you'll notice that in all but kind of one category here when it comes to colubrids. So you can see corn snakes. Same thing from November to December. We saw a slight downward tick. In garters, it's a downward tick, but there's barely any garters listed in the first place. Hognose, no downward tick. They continue to go up even between November and December. House snakes, downward tick. King snakes, downward tick from November to December. Milks, kind of flat, but still a slightly downward tick. Rat snakes, downward tick. Other colubrids, downward tick. Basically, in every colubrid species from November to December, we saw fewer listed in December than November, meaning more of them have been sold, except hognose. Now, I can't say how many hognose were sold. All I can say is that more hognose were listed than were sold between November and December. And it's been like that every month since June. There you see the arrow. The other thing that I keep pointing out when it comes to hognose and corn snakes, because this is something to me that we expect trends, we expect patterns of up and down, but when looking at December of last year compared to December of this year, seeing a substantial increase in the number that were listed, that's pretty intriguing. We're looking at roughly looks like somewhere around 2,400 corn snakes last December and sitting a little over 3,000 now. To me, that again is so interesting, being that is a species that's been on the market so heavy for so long. To see that continuing to climb while everything else dips is just very interesting in my opinion. But hognose continue to be the big ones. We're looking somewhere around 3,300 last December, and we're now sitting probably close to about 4,100 this December. So again, hognose continue to pop on the market. All right. So market share, ball pythons 65%. Other pythons are making up 5%. Boas coming in at 9%. Colubrids 21% of the current listings. Now to the colubrid market share. Bulls, pines, gophers, so all your pits making up 7%. Corn snakes, 28%. Garters, that little sliver right there, 1%. Hognose, boom, 37%. House snakes, they're on the map, but they make up less than 1%. King snakes, 13%. Milk snakes, 4%. Rat snakes, 7%. Other colubrids, 3%. Again, this continues to tell me how much I'm still, out of all this that's, I could find surprising. The one that I think surprises me the most is rat snakes at 7%. When you think of all the rat snake species that are out there, whether it's North American, Asian, just for them to only be making up 7% is just, I don't know.
That's
I'm kind
fair.
of flabbergasted by that. So let's see. So some actual numbers and market change. As we said, from November to December, ball pythons dropped 488 units. So, but with the way the market shifted, they actually had a 0.5% increase in their market gain, from 64.6 to 65.1. Other pythons dropped 191, and market share just zero point 0.2 points down. Boas, they're 310 less than in November, putting them at 5,093 in December, and market share dropped 0.4 points. Colubrids, although they had 217 fewer listings than last month, they still pretty much flat, but actually picked up 0.1 points on the market share. There are currently 11,004 colubrids listed as of today. In total, there was a drop of 1,206 snakes from November to December, and an overall market shrinkage as far as listings by 2.2 points. So, and just in case you're wondering how many of each were listed, Pituophis, 776, corn snakes, 3,076, garters, 55, hognose, 4,086, house snakes, 45, kings, 1,471, milks, 486, rats, 714, all others, 292. So now for some trends, patterns, and tips. I'll tell you, one of the current trends I've seen is shows have proven to be steady if your mix is right. And I don't just mean colubrids. I mean, for me, it's expanding out further than just any one species or any one genre, let's say. But shows have been very, very strong. And I'm finding that it's a mix with throughout other vendors as well. You know, there's some that, you know, obviously don't do well. They share that. And there's others who are seeming to do well every chance they, you know, get to go to a show. And I think it's going to come down to ensuring that you're as diversified as possible. But I also think that while we have everything at our fingertips online, for some reason, people are kind of starting to shift their mindset a little bit on preference and are really making it happen, you know, out at the shows. So Black Friday was a success, but saw fewer animal transactions. You know, as I mentioned earlier, so that kind of tells me that there are certain other areas within the industry that seem to be, you know, more, be a smarter play at the moment. Wednesday of this week is the shipping cutoff for most. Some companies, breeders have already cut off shipping. Some may push it a little longer. I would advise that this Wednesday be your last day if your weather is even permitting that. Next week, there seems to be a polar vortex hitting through a lot of the country. And you're also starting to push yourself too close to all the holiday shopping and all that delay. So at this point, keep it in mind that Wednesday of this week, if you're listening, it's the 8th, December 8th right now, if you're listening to this later. But Wednesday of this week should be the last shipping day, and I would strongly advise that to be so. Hognose continue to rise. The market is there, but so is the supply. I mean, that's the simplest way for me to say it is, you know, hognose continue to be strong for the players that have, you know, a lot of the nice morphs. Just again, I continue to say, if that's a direction you're going to go, have at it. I think you're going to enjoy it. Just know that it's going to be one that is a little less lucrative than some of the others. Some 30 and 60 day advice here. Payment plans, I've talked about them before. You got them? Because this is going to be where if someone's buying a snake from you online, you're going to be holding it for a while. And even if they're not paying for it in full, if you're going to be holding it for the next 6 weeks, maybe it's okay to offer payment plans if you don't usually. So you might want to start thinking about putting that in place. And I will say, anybody who is kind of wondering what they should do with those, you're more than welcome to view our terms of sale on the Metazotics website, and you can utilize word for word what we put out there on our payment terms and payment plans. So I just want to kind of put the hand out and say, if you need a little assistance on what works and, you know, what you think you should do, you're welcome to take a look at what we do and see if that would work for you. Plan your spring breeding now. Who should move on? I mentioned this before, and at this point, a lot of colubrids are already under. I was supposed to turn our coolant on today, and I forgot. So they will start getting cooled off tomorrow. But they're already flushed out. But again, it's just a good time to, if you're not going to be breeding them next year, and you don't want to, if you're not the forever home, now's the time to make that decision and try to clean some space. So, okay, so shows. I talked about the steadiness that they have provided for us, at least here lately. Shows are going to avoid shipping, and they're now the most solid outlet for you when it comes to sales over the next 8 weeks. Now, given where you live, that, of course, changes some of that on maybe it's safe for you now, maybe it will be safe for you in 4 weeks. Who knows what your winter looks like? But across the country, I will say shows are your most solid and true form and outlet to sell animals over the next 2 months. Put your shipping on a Monday follow-up after the first, if at all. And this is I guess I wanted to share the way that we handle shipping through the winter. As I said, this Wednesday is our cutoff for the rest of the year. Now, after the first of the year, what we do is every Monday we've got a list of snakes that have sold online that are waiting to ship. And every Monday I check every zip code, including ours, of course, and what the weather looks like. And every Monday, everyone who's waiting on a shipment from us gets an email. And that email is either, don't see a good shipping window this week, I'll reach out again next week. Or Wednesday for Thursday looks good. Does that work for you? And basically what that does is it keeps you in contact with your customers so they know that you're paying attention. And if a window opens up and it works for them, great. If not, you're going to message them again next Monday. That's how it should work through the winter so that you are able to ship animals when that window arrives. But you're not, it's real easy to lose things in the shuffle, at least if you've got multiple shipments that are waiting. So I just wanted to kind of share that process, and it seems to work great for our customers. They love the follow-up communication, and we get them out as quick as we can. I will also tell you, if you've got several animals left from this year, if you're not looking to do shows, if shows aren't your thing, but you're also not looking to sit on animals, throughout the winter, this is the time for you to consider wholesale. And it's actually, as you go into winter and all the way up to really the end of March, beginning of April, that is a really good time if you are wanting to wholesale animals. And I say that because once the season hits and everything's hatching, the wholesale market's flooded. It's everybody's got stuff they want to wholesale, but everybody has stuff, and doesn't have room. So this is a good time that you are able to move animals to anyone who does purchase wholesale. So if that's something for you, not pushing anybody in any direction, but if that's something that you're considering, this is definitely a time of year that it's beneficial for you because there will be people seeking it. So it's also a good time to experiment. And what I mean is, have you ever done an auction? Maybe this is when you try one. Have you offered package deals? Maybe this is when you try that. Have you ever offered payment plans? Maybe this is when you try that. Is there a show within 2.5, 3 hours of you that you've never hit before? Maybe this is when you try that. And I say it is because typically, if you're a colubrid breeder, this is when you have a little bit more free time. Your snakes are down. You don't have as many babies. You're not having to deal with the bulk of your collection. So this may be when you have a little bit more free time to try different things and see if there's something else you want to add to your toolbox, and see if there's other things that you want to implement in your grind, so to speak. So this is it. This is the time. The next 6 weeks is when it'd be good for you to experiment with other options. And I think that is all that I have for this segment of the market update.
I'm going to say one thing as the guy who wholesaled for the first time. I was a little iffy because as a basement breeder, whatever the hell you want to call small batch guy, I really like the giving or the selling the snakes to the person. They know who I am. They can come to me. I sold a bunch to Jared, who runs the Lexington show, right?
Yep. Great guy.
Same guy. Yeah. Awesome guy. And then Josh, Alder, false water cobras, and bull snakes. And I told both Josh and Jared, hey, when you sell these, tell them it came from me and that they can reach out. And it's actually been really cool because I didn't have to deal with the sale. I just get to do the fun part of coaching them with one. Actually, somebody reached out to me today about they picked up some of my Newton County Kankakee bull snakes I wholesaled to Jared. And I think they actually bought them in the pet store in Huntington, West Virginia, where I went to grad school. So like weird full circle moment. But yeah, no, that's been kind of fun. I have to admit that. So that's all. Okay.
And it's, I mean, like I said, I'm seeing, you'd be surprised because typically when people think, of animals being wholesale, they think that it's like your bottom rung animals. And that's not the case because it's not about the animal. It's about what the individual who produced it, what they want to do with their time. That's really what it comes down to. And so, it's not some dirty word. I mean, 95% of anything you buy in life was wholesaled at some point to get to you. You know what I mean? So it's just, this is just something that we're actually putting a light on it and saying, this happens and here's the good, the bad, the whatever. So.
Okay. Ready to bring on Christian?
Let's do it. So the guest portion of our show always is provided by ReptiChip. ReptiChip's got some great products out there. As you know, I get pallets and pallets of it sitting here at a time. I think I just ordered one a few weeks ago and we're already having to order another pallet in. I love to use ReptiChip here for the balls, the boas, and really anything that needs humidity. And Zach, I know you use it for incubation. And so great product and, also supporters of the show. So please get some ReptiChip, try it out, see what you think. But let's bring on Christian.
All righty.
Hey, gentlemen.
Hey,
welcome to the show, Mr. Christian Diederich of Select Snakes. How are you tonight, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no. Well, we're happy to have you. So to give people some background on Christian, as you're about to learn, is one hell of a herper, a badass keeper. And I know he's listened to CCR for quite some time. And I'm also very proud and happy to say that he's starting the grad program at West Liberty with me this spring. So that's pretty awesome. And he's been to both Colubrid Fests. So
and he's been to Metazotics.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That trumps everything.
That's right.
Forget about the same species list. He went to Metazotics.
all good things and all kind of proof of, how much I appreciate what you guys do with this podcast, with Colubrid Fest. I think just generally for the Colubrid community, you guys have done a stellar job. So
thanks, man.
It means a lot to us.
Yeah, it does mean a lot. Okay. So you want to kick us off with questions, Clint?
Yeah. Let's jump in. So Christian, kind of let's hear the origin story. How'd you get into reptiles? When did it start? How did it start? Who was involved? Let's give us all the juice.
Sure. So I think my story is a pretty common one among reptile keepers. I grew up walking the creeks with my dad. I grew up in Southwest Ohio. We had a couple acres of woods behind the house. We had a creek. We had one of those kind of manufactured suburban ponds down at the end of the street. So I grew up, crawling through clay and catching queen snakes, snapping turtles.
Nice.
Crayfish, all that good stuff with my dad. So that's kind of where it all started. At the same time, I also kept a couple reptiles growing up. My first one was an excellent starter reptile, an imported Chinese water dragon.
Nice.
And it was classic 90s keeping. We had no clue what we were doing. We had it in a big old fish tank with a heat rock and UVB. I had no idea what that was. So mean as hell, really mean lizard. From there, I always liked snakes, but my mom was, had kind of a true phobia of rodents. So I was always kept to lizards. Ironically, we ended up feeding that Chinese water dragon mice anyway. So
Oh, there you go.
I don't know what that helped, but but yeah. So growing up, did a lot of. I had no idea it was called herping, but I did a lot of herping with my dad, and then kind of fast forward in my adult life. I like to do a lot of hiking. I like to get outdoors, and I always was kind of looking for critters. Whenever we got outside, and I had no idea there was a whole hobby. People thought this was like an acceptable thing to do until probably around 2019 or so, when I learned that other people had these same weird interests. And that's when I started researching and really kind of figuring out, how to field herp properly.
Very cool. And so we established that you're a herper, absolutely field herping to the nth degree, which we will be talking about here in a moment. But you also have quite the collection. So you kept the water dragon. Then we go to college, on the grad school, everything like that. But when did snakes in human care enter the picture?
Yeah, so after law school, really, I think around the pandemic, I've always loved animals. I've always been allergic to things with fur and feathers, and so reptiles have always kind of been my niche. And my wife was never really super into reptiles. It really took some kind of wearing her down to finally agree to get a snake. And our first snake in my adult life was a Mexican black king snake.
Good
Nice.
choice.
And
Good choice.
she was like, "Oh, don't expect me to hold it. Don't expect me to do anything. This is your thing. I don't want anything to do with it." And fast forward 6 years, and now we have a couple hundred snakes, and she's very much my partner in this whole enterprise. She feeds them, she waters them, she does everything. So we've come kind of a long way.
Yeah, I want to speak to how awesome that is. So Christian came by my way, and we went up into to look for timber rattlesnakes up in the mountains, and we're driving to the site, and Megan or Megan? Megan called, and of course, with cars today, it comes over, and she's like talking to Christian about, oh well, this morph of hog babies ate, and these ones didn't eat. We got all these leftover pinkies, and I just remember sitting there thinking, like, what is happening? Kathy, we would never have this conversation with Kathleen Loughman, and that is fine, but it was just kind of interesting to hear. You two are authentic as can be, and I greatly appreciate that. So
I deeply appreciate it too. I don't know how I would do it without Megan. We both have kind of professional jobs. She's an accountant. I'm an attorney. So it's very much, necessary to kind of divide and conquer, especially when I'm traveling all over the country looking for snakes on top of everything. So I really appreciate it as well.
Yeah, no, super cool. Okay. So we'll focus on the keeping first. So I do know that you have a mostly colubroid centric collection. If you don't mind, just kind of giving the 100,000 foot view of what species you keep, and then we'll dive in and pick apart a couple of them.
Yeah, sure thing. So, like you said, mostly colubrids and colubroids. I've got a couple kind of honorary colubrids with the rosy boas and the rubber boas that I like to keep. But my collection's totally New World stuff, and I think a lot of that's just because, my passion in this hobby really comes from crawling around a creek bed finding queen snakes. And so I've kind of always gravitated towards the stuff I get to see in the field. Now my collection's mostly the stuff that I really like to go find. So I've got a number of Texas indigo snakes, black-tailed crebos, a bunch of the hognose snakes. I've got a lot of Nassicus, and then a couple Simus and Canelii. I've got a whole bunch of Lamprepeltis. I think I'm up to 10 species of king and milk snakes. I've got a couple of the nature scenes. I've got a group of salt marsh snakes from Chris Montrose, a couple of checkered garters. I've got a lot of Pituophis, so mostly focus on bull snakes and Louisiana pine snakes. Also got a pair of black pines. And then I've got some odds and ends. Like I've got one Spilotes pilatus from Jason Hood. I love that snake.
Yeah.
So fun to watch.
Was that a Colubrid Fest pickup?
It was. That was me. The moment watching the door for Jason's big frame to walk in. And
Yeah, he's
taken
hard to
down.
miss.
Yeah.
You know, it's-
Yeah, I was like, I'm not missing that snake. Yeah. Anyway, I've got a lyre snake. I've got just a couple kind of odds and ends like that, but mostly Heterodon, Drymarkin, Lampripeltis, and Pituophis are kind of our bread and butter.
Okay.
what's
So-
your favorite?
Yeah, there you go.
Like if you were going to start,
Yeah.
well, and I know that's a loaded question, so let me rephrase that. Is there a group that you tend to kind of lean a little more into?
I love the Drymarkin. I mean, to me, like a big active colubrid is like the best thing.
Yeah.
It's cheating a little bit with the Melanurus species. It covers a whole range of snakes, which honestly, I think the Cribos and the Indigos are very different to keep.
Yeah.
And I love all of them. So if I had to pick one, I think that's probably it. The Louisiana pines are very close second, probably. I really adore those snakes.
Very, very cool. So here's a question just to stick on this.
Mm-hmm.
So Blacktail Cribos and Texas Indigos are, I think that they are taxonomically the same, or they were the same not that long ago. How about that?
They are, yeah.
Yeah.
Melanurus.
Do you see, I have Blacktails and Texas Indigos as well. Do you see differences in them as far as husbandry is concerned, or not?
I definitely do. Yeah. For one, I keep my blacktails a lot more humid than I keep my Texas Indigos. I think if you don't, you get a lot of shed problems.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't seen that in the Texans. I think the Cribos, their demeanor is a little different. They're a little flightier, a little less confident. I think they're a little bit more prone to be picky when it comes to eating, although my adults are pretty good now. I like to give my Cribos a hot spot where I don't feel like I need to with my Texas Indigos, but I really do think the Cribos, their digestion, their behavior kind of tells me that, hey, they want a little bit of heat.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when I heat my Texans up, I think they just get agitated. So I think those are the main differences, but the whole body plan is very different too. I mean, They both get to be big, beefy, long snakes, but the Cribos are a little bit more gracile. They have got longer tails. They just kind of a slightly different body plan, whereas the Texan Indigos are just brutes. I mean, they're
brutes. Yep.
Their attitudes are great. You pull them out, they huff at you. They've just got this presence that I really am drawn to.
No, I didn't really set out to interact with as many Drymarkin as I have in the past 10 years, but we've got the relationship with Orion Center for Indigo Snake Conservation, and when I go down there to help a grad student in a day, I put hands on 10 to 20 Easterns. We have Easterns at the college. I've got Texans, I have Yellowtails at the university, and I've got my Blacktails. And my favorite are the Texans, and no one ever talks about the Texans. I feel like they're like the redheaded stepchild of the Drymarkin. Rubidus this, Yellowtail that, Easterns that. But after keeping all of them, they are unequivocally my favorite, and a very close second are the Blacktails.
There's this perception out there that the Texans are smaller, and I just want to set the record straight on that. They're not. They're huge snakes. My male is all of 7.5 feet, and he's 12 pounds. I mean, it's like holding a steel cord. I mean, he's crazy.
Yeah. Yep. No. Okay. Cool. Very cool.
You keep lamps as well, right? Lampripeltis?
Oh yeah.
And what do you keep in terms of Lampripeltis?
So it all started with the Mexican Black King snake. I keep a group of Leonis, a group of gentilis from they're all kind of central Kansas locality. I've got Holbrooki, Mexicana, Multifasciata and Zonata, Splendida, and Triangulum. Triangulum suspilla, which is important for me to say because I live in Ohio and they use the trinomial. So
I'm sitting here, I'm trying to decide because you said a lot of Montane Kings, and that I liked. You did say some Getchla there. But you didn't say any alternative. So
No,
I don't know
didn't.
whether to consider this a win or a loss in this continuous debate. So.
But I do think he said Getchula. Didn't you say
I
Getchula?
might have forgot but I do have Getchula. And
Yeah,
I
he's
have
got Getchula.
some beasts. I've got a male that's about 6 feet long, and he's very fun. He produces some amazing offspring. So I don't really pick a side. I like them all.
We don't either. We like them all.
They're very different. I mean, like for all being in the same genus of snakes, keeping them is very, very different.
Mm-hmm.
I think Getchula are one of the most underrated pets in the country. I mean, there's not really a hardier snake to keep.
I think I think Getchula falls a lot into the same realm as a black rat snake.
Yeah.
That being that they have such a widespread range, and it's even when we talk about Getchula, you kind of have to run that into the Eastern Black Kings, even Speckled King. That while they may be different, it's kind of all kind of linked.
They're all
similar.
Same.
Right.
Floridiana falls in that group as well.
Right. Exactly. And so I think because they do have such a wide range that they feel a little more common to people, just like a black rat snake does. So I think that's probably why they're not seen as high at times as what they should be because of all the positives that go with them. Like you said, heavy-bodied snakes, they seem to be bulletproof. You can screw up a lot and they still be okay.
Oh yeah.
So I think they're other than some issues with getting babies to feed,
Yes.
on
I was
them.
just about to say that. That's the only thing.
Yeah. Other than that, once they're going, they are a great beginner species as well for someone who's just getting in because you can screw up, and they're big enough as babies to take all the handling, and all of that. So, I agree with you there that they're definitely cool.
The only thing I've noticed with the Getchula group, for compared to rat snakes and pits, they seem to dehydrate faster. Like evaporative water loss is an absolute thing, given they're like down at the ground level in the swamp or riparian corridors, all that kind of crap. I have noticed like if the water dries out in a bull snake enclosure and you don't get to it for 3 or 4 days, it's fine. But if it dries out with these Easterns in a Floridiana, Jesus, they're looking a little crispy. So
yeah, that is one thing I specifically do with my Getchula hatchlings that I don't do with any other snakes other than my blacktails this year. But I give them humid hides, and it can be real simple. It can be a wad of sphagnum moss in a sideways 3-ounce deli. But I find giving them some option to be humid helps not only with shedding and general husbandry, but I actually think it makes them better eaters too.
No, I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, okay, cool. So let's talk briefly about hogs. We have to. We had John Burry's book on today. I'm writing a book on hogs. I want to talk about your Nassicus collection because I know that your Nassicus kind of pay the bills to a certain extent. And then we're going to segue over to Sinus.
Okay.
Hogs, because I don't think we've ever talked about those on this show. And you are the only other human I know of that has them besides me. So, so we're going to take full advantage of this opportunity. So Western, which morphs are you keeping and why?
Yeah, so my philosophy with the Western morphs is I just chase what looks good to me. I'm not, like Jeff Gilwood, I'm never going to be out there buying the latest and greatest and trying to sell snakes for a couple grand. That's just not my place in the market. So I really focus on snakes that I just think look nice. And for me, my very favorite morph is the Super Arctics. I think in terms of a single morph, there's like there's nothing that looks better, especially on a hognose and does more.
Yep.
So I work a lot with the Arctic gene. I work with the albino gene, sable gene, the conda gene, and starting to get into the toffee belly stuff a little bit. I've got a couple grow ups to kind of work that into some of my projects. And Xanthic. I lucked into a super nice Xanthic line. I think there's a couple morphs in hognose where the expression can vary a lot.
Yeah.
Arctic is another one. You know, you can have a snake that is Arctic, you can't even tell. It looks just like a normal hognose. And then you can have ones that almost look like a Super Arctic. And I think the Xanthic gene is another one where, you know, you get some perfectly kind of grayscale snakes versus some kind of brown snakes. And I really like our Xanthic line. So that's something we try to focus on. I'm really trying to mix the Xanthic line with the Super Arctic line to just get really kind of crisp Super Arctics. So that's our big like hognose project.
Very cool.
Very nice, yeah.
And what's your trick, just for funsies, when you got babies that don't want to eat? What is Christian and Megan's go-to to get them to eat?
So I think the biggest trick is patience. Our first couple of years breeding, we were very nervous. We started assist feeding and force feeding way too early, 4 or 5, 6 weeks. I think the biggest change that's been the most helpful is just letting them get hungry, honestly.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do, especially when you're kind of new at it. Like to me, that pays the biggest dividends. Some of our snakes do eventually require scenting if that doesn't work. So we make what we call a super scent. We basically take sardine juice, salmon juice, tuna juice, egg yolk, chicken broth, and we make it into this big nasty mixture. And the reason we do that is like some of them are very picky and they want very specific things. So our first couple of years breeding, every time we're going to feed them, we're thawing like 6 different scents, and we got sick of that. So we're like, okay, we'll just put it all in one bowl. It normally works. Normally, the combination or just, having whatever weird thing they're preferring in that mix is enough. So I would say this year, probably close to like 98% of our snakes either ate frozen thawed or super scented frozen thawed. And then for the leftovers, we just have to resort to live mice usually.
Okay. Gotcha.
Nice.
Which are more expensive than Wagyu snake on a per ounce basis, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
I want to real quick while we're on the topic of babies and producing babies, because I don't always ask guests this, and I'm curious now, because you seem to have a pretty wide array, of collection. It's not honed in, on a single species or single taxa really. So just rough idea, how many babies did you produce this year?
I think we were just over 200. I think we were around like 215 or so.
Okay, very respectable. So, where do you move yours? Do you do shows? Do you do? I mean, I'm curious. I think this is something I should probably start asking some of our guests because it applies to kind of half of our show, I guess.
Sure.
A piece there. So I'm just curious what works for you.
Sure. So online sales are a big one. We post on Morph Market. I also get kind of incidental sales through Facebook, just posting fresh clutches, especially it seems like the king snake crowd really, especially the Getchula group. Like I don't sell almost any Getchula through Morph Market. It's always through word of mouth or Facebook. We've started doing more shows. We've done both Colubrid Fest and we've started doing our local show at Sin City. And that's been pretty successful for us. So I think we're going to try to keep doing that moving forward. Otherwise, I mean, we've got a lot left. I think we probably still have about half of our production from this year still.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking about wholesaling. I mean, a lot of this is kind of my fault. I've got a pretty demanding day job. And so the first thing that I fall behind on is marketing and listing, as obviously I'm not going to fall behind on caring for the animals.
Correct. Yeah.
That, you know, that can't take second seat. So I think some of it, I think we could do a little better online if I was a little bit more proactive, but I think we're going to start trying to expand a little bit. I think we're going to try to do Zirkel's show, and we might try to zip down to Lexington, because it really does seem like every time we do a show, we move a good number of snakes.
Good. Gotcha. Just curious, like I said, I think it's something we'll probably check on.
Tell everybody what went down with your pitch office. I remember you talked about that when we went to.
Yeah, that was fun. I wish every sale was like that. I posted, we had a clutch our first year producing our morph bull snakes. We've got a pair of ghost makers. The female's a ghost and the male is a exanthic het hypo. And we produced, it was a pretty small clutch. I think it was like 7 or 8 snakes, but we listed one on Morph Market. And like an hour after posting it, a guy from Taiwan reached out and was like, "Do you have more?" It's like, "Yeah, we got a clutch at 8." It's like, "Great, I'll take them." So we sold one whole clutch to Taiwan. It was like, I wish it was always that easy.
I know exactly. I think I've shared this story on the show at some point, but there was one year I had 3 Mexican Black King females all lay a clutch on the same day. And so I took a picture of these 3 clutches all sitting next to each other, you know, and Mexican Black, you know, labeled what it was and posted it. And same thing. I had an individual from China reach out and bought every one of them in the egg right then and there with the understanding that, okay, if 2 don't hatch, I just deduct this amount per animal that doesn't, you know, make it. But yeah, all 3 clutches in full right then and there. So it doesn't always happen like that, people. Trust me. That was very rare.
Yeah.
But when it did, you're like, all right.
That's so nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Okay.
Do we want to talk about how he keeps with all these?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you know, we're going to jump into field herping. We know that, but
do the Southerns, you keep them the same way you keep the Westerns?
Yeah. So the Southerns, the disclaimer on this is I'm pretty new into the Southerns. I've had them for maybe a year now. And I got I only have 1 pair. I got it from Kevin Fisher. Yep. He's a great guy. Definitely recommend working with him.
That's where mine came from. That's pretty much where almost everybody's come from.
Yeah. And I got really lucky. So I reached out to Kevin and he was kind of on the fence. There's this male he kind of wanted to hold back. He was kind of back and forth. But he ended up deciding to keep it. But I bought a female from him saying, "Okay, but like next time you have a male available, let me know." And it just so happened that he was getting a shipment in from Germany of these red line Simus that are actually like a naturally occurring kind of red phenotype from North Florida. So I got to piggyback off his bulk order and I got a male from that group. So my male Simus is absolutely killer. I'm hoping they'll go next year. We'll see. But I keep them mostly the same in terms of temperature. I think the one big difference is I do give my Simus a humid hide. And I'm pretty religious about keeping that damp because if I don't, they absolutely have shed problems. And actually I use your, I forget what you call it, but I use your box.
Oh, the Whitman box.
Whitman box, which is great because before I did that, I did the classic, Sterilite with a half moon cut into it. And the female just made it her mission every single time I filled that thing to push every single piece of moss out into the aspen. Yep. So it was such a pain. But the boxes work great. She only is able to push like 10% of it.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I keep them the same. I guess the other difference is I do feed my Simus Reptilink products every other feeding. I kind of alternate between rodents, and then I use I think it's iguana and quail fortified with quail egg. just because I've heard about issues with them getting fat on rodent only diets. I don't know if it's true, but I figure it's easy enough to try to head that off.
Yeah,
go ahead, Zach. I'm sorry.
I'm real quick with the Simus. They're not cheap snakes, so everybody knows that. And they haven't been listed yet. They probably will be federally listed soon, and that'll of course make moving babies an issue. But in all actuality, they may need to be listed. So I'm going to go on the record saying that the fire ants have done a number, development, all that jazz. So I'm not anti-listing them for the record. But I babied these things, and I bought them hairless mice. I did the link thing, and I got my 2 females to the point where I could move them into this space. And so I moved them into one of these enclosures over here, and I would feed them, and they would come out and both eat their hairless mouse or the link and go back. So I got a little complacent, and so I just started drop feeding. I would be typing, I'd look over, and I'd watch them eat. And then I did a welfare check on them after doing that for about 4 or 5 feedings. And what was actually happening is that the one was eating all the food and the other one was not eating. So now I have this freaking gargantuan southern hognose snake and this other one that is like perfect body condition, like everything. So I lost one of my males. I have a backup male and then another male that's their age. So I'm actually giving them a go next year. But that one female, if she goes, she's going to lay like 20 freaking eggs. She's got so much fat store. It's ridiculous. So, and you got to be careful if you go have them. But anyway. All right. What were you going to ask, Clint?
I don't know. I think when we were talking about the Reptile links and, that mix and saying that, you're not sure whether or not you need to, it's what I love is the fact that we have products like that available.
Yeah.
If we've got access to it and we know we're getting it closer to a natural, diet, then with that mix, why not?
Yeah.
Why not? I know there are times where certain feeders or certain items are going to be more pricey. At this point, they're not a whole lot more pricey than rodents. No. Let's be honest. But if we've got access to it and the ability to do it, I think we should. It's a win in my book.
Yeah, I really think there is something to the diverse diet. I think when I look at my dry market, I really think they benefit heavily from mixing in, frog sausages, rodents, birds. I don't have the empirical data to back it up, but I do really feel like when I feed a more diverse mix, I get a lot better growth and a lot better body condition out of my dry market.
There is empirical data for that. I just can't find the damn paper, but it does exist because Dr. Bogan talks about it all the time. So,
well, as far as the keeping, with everything that you've got with such a variety, are we looking at racks? Are we looking at, caging? Are we, pins outside? What are you doing?
It's a mix. I really kind of run the gambit. I've got couple really elaborate kind of bioactive naturalistic enclosures that I like, and I think that's kind of the direction I'm moving generally. Like my salt marsh snakes, I've got in a paludarium that's all live planted with a large kind of filtered water section. My spilotes is in a nice kind of live planted situation. Same with my checkered garters. I don't know how you would keep garter snakes without putting them on bioactive. Just you'd be cleaning poop every day, multiple times a day, probably. And then most of my large colubrids are in big PVCs. So anything from like 8x2x2 to 6x2x2. I've got a couple 6x3x1s, which wouldn't recommend. It's really hard to clean out a cage that's 3 feet deep and a foot high. Which I like. I honestly wish I could go bigger. It's kind of a space thing. I'd probably have more dry marking if I had more space for them, but I think space is just kind of the limiting factor with them. And it's part of the reason why I have such a diverse collection is it's just it kind of it's easier to have a ton of lamprey peltis than it is to have a ton of dry market. It's like, I keep most of them in animal plastic PVCs. I really like their products. My one issue with PVC enclosures is it's very hard to give the kind of heat gradients I would prefer to give, just because even if you custom order the double ventilation, those PVC enclosures hold heat so well. So I've been trying to kind of experiment with better ways to do that. The other part of that is I really like to give overhead heat with visible light. Yeah. I just think it's the most natural. It kind of encourages the most natural behaviors, and you just kind of really run into issues trying to do that in a PVC enclosure without making the whole thing too hot. So I use a lot of those. I've got a lot of racks as well, especially for my babies and juvenile snakes. And then most of my adult heterodon and some of the smaller lamps I do keep in racks, which I definitely go on this bigger side in terms of tubs, but there are rack systems.
I wanted to say something about a product that's actually new, because with what you were just hitting on PVCs and putting the light in there and getting them too hot, because obviously the kind of the better solution for that is a screened top. It's like sliding door caging, but then what you run into is humidity control can then be an issue when you've got straight screen. So I guess I wanted to throw this out there because I just we got him in today, because he had let me know that he finally had him in stock. But Vivarium Electronics has just rolled out I think they call it either a humid map or Humimap, something like that. But it's a thick mat that goes on top of their 4x2 screen enclosures, and it's got spots where you can cut out for your domes and everything, and you can cut it down to however much you want to cover, and it's really nice. It's really cool. So just being that you had mentioned that, I'm like, you know what, I literally just put these on the shelf today. So pretty cool. And I mean, that way, because I love the sliding glass there specifically, but really the sliding glass enclosures that, I mean, at this point, there's several manufacturers we're seeing with different variations of them. And this product would work on any 4x2, footprint.
West Liberty University with like 6 of those.
Get you taken care of, buddy.
That's the only issue we're having with the enclosures. And but that solves it right there. Yeah, pages we got from you who got from Reptile Basics. So yeah, cool. All right, so we've covered keeping. Any final thoughts on keeping, Clint?
No, I mean, I think at this point, what I want to hear about is where he goes and finds all these amazing animals.
Yes,
that he does, and how he does it.
So one of the things that's fun about having Christian on is Christian is an extremely avid field herper. I feel like even if you were, I don't think you did this intentionally, but birders have a big year, and I kind of feel like you were trying to have a big year this year, even if you weren't. So, we were, before we came on, I said, like, this is the first year I know of that I got to 50 species in a year. But Christian, I believe you said you got to 83.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, 83 snake species, not 83 snakes.
Amazing.
And I know you went to California, Florida, Georgia, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, I guess, if you made it to rodeo. Kind of all the highlights, and then other states I'm not mentioning, obviously. So what I love about you keeping is that you have to be inspired by nature, because you're out in nature almost as much as you're in your snake room, as far as free time's concerned. So I am addicted to herping. Clint likes it a lot. What would you consider? So here, this is the immortal question to ask people like you and me. Are you more of a herper than a keeper, or more of a keeper than a herper, and why? If you had to pick one, which one are you picking?
Probably field herping. Yeah. It's just like it's such a fun hobby because, like, putting aside even seeing the snakes, I love getting out to parts of the country that I probably would not otherwise seek out. Kansas, the Kankakee Sand Plains. I mean, you just get to see so much of this country. It gets you active. I really just love being out in nature, moving my legs, and looking for stuff. You get to see so much other nature. I mean, putting the herps aside, there's just so much biodiversity that this country has to offer, and it's really fun to have a reason to kind of immerse yourself in that all the time. So yeah, I think if I had to pick one, I would be in the field.
Okay.
I think one of the things that I really enjoy about field herping, is the surprise.
Yeah.
You may go out with an idea on what you're going to find, what you're looking for, but one, like you said, there's so much other nature that you're going to come across. For me, it's when hunting. I just on the way to Lexington having a conversation with our associate Kaylee, who this was her first show. She's now learning to be able to do the shows, but we were talking about nature, and she's an avid like hiker and walks trails. And I said, for me, in hunting, it's always amazing the things you see and hear when nature doesn't realize you're there. It's so cool. But the surprise of, yeah, I'm looking for king snakes, but you flip this log and it could be anything, under there or nothing under there. So kind of that, just the surprise that comes along with it, I think is really neat.
Yeah, there's definitely a big dopamine rush, especially when you really have a dedicated target. And especially if you've taken multiple trips to a place trying to find something, whiffed, I mean, like field herping can be kind of brutal if you're not seeing anything. I think there's like type 3 fun. There's different classifications of fun, and one of them is like you're not really having fun while you're doing it. That's field herping sometimes, but like when if you're on your 4th trip to a place and you've never had luck, and then all of a sudden it's just that feeling of seeing what you're looking for in front of you all of a sudden. I don't think any other feeling comes close.
Yep.
Especially on the keeping side.
I got a quick field herping question for you then, Christian, because this is going to be kind of like the very beginning of it. Because you're not so. I'm sure there's times that you're like, hey, I'll be back later, and you just go somewhere that nearby that you can go to see if you find anything. But obviously, you put some thought into where you're going and plan this and map this out. What does that look like for you? I mean, it's for us, at least for me, Zac does it a lot more than I do. But for me to go states away, I've got to have it mapped out. Somebody's got to take me. You know what I mean? That's the short of it. Somebody's got to hold my hand and take me where to go. So
I'll take you, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So what does it look like for you? How do you plan it and map it and decide where you're going and to make it successful?
So I'm a just totally shameless life lister. So kind of like in the birding world, I think there's a lot of us that keep life lists, and we're kind of motivated by that checklist of I got to see everything. And for me, I just really want to see every snake species in the US. That's kind of my overarching goal. So a lot of my travel plans are kind of dictated by what haven't I seen yet? And then like in terms of actually finding them, like I think there's kind of 3 main parts to finding a snake. And one of them's being in the right place. One of them's being out there at the right time. And then the third one is like actually being able to detect the snake. And so like when picking places, it's kind of the first piece of that. Basically you start at the macro level. It's like, well, what do I want to see? What is its geographical range? Like obviously I'm not going to go to South Florida if I want to see an eastern milk snake. So I got to figure out where in the country it exists. And then from there, it's really doing a lot of research on, what's the habitat look like for what you want to see? Where have people observed it? I mean, there's more resources than there's ever been in terms of where people see snakes. So it's kind of leveraging those resources. And then I spent a lot of time, especially in the winter months, just on Google Maps, looking at satellite views, looking for board lines, looking for good habitat, really just kind of trying to take in the scenery and try to figure out a good plan of like, where could I go to see whatever snake I'm targeting. And a lot of that, some of it's networking too. I mean, I've gotten to know a lot of people in the field too. So it always helps if you've got a friend who's kind of gives you that local knowledge of, okay, like I want to see this in California. It's nice to have people to bounce ideas off of too.
Have these trips been mainly solo, or are you going with groups, or?
Yeah, so it's a mix. I would say most of my trips are solo. And part of that is because I'm an attorney. It's kind of my day job, but I'm fully remote. So I actually have a fair amount of flexibility with my schedule. I can pretty much work from anywhere in the country. And like conditions are king when it comes to herping, really. It's kind of that second piece is like there's kind of both seasonal patterns, right? So, your target species might have a breeding window when it first gets warm in the spring, or it might be when it first you get cool nighttime temps in the fall. So it really helps to be able to be spontaneous and kind of chase those good conditions. And kind of universally in the U.S. almost precipitation is really kind of a driving factor in herp movement. So a lot of my trips are solo just because they're kind of spur of the moment. I often decide like a day or two before the trip that I'm going to go somewhere. But I have a lot of friends. I really like herping in a small group, especially like 2 or 3 people, especially if you're kind of have similar, goals and activity levels. Like it's much more fun. If you're the kind of person who wants to be out at dawn and come back at 2 a.m., you want to be on a trip with somebody who kind of shares that philosophy. So I'm fortunate to have a couple good friends that are really kind of willing to go hard and spend as much time as possible in the field. I go on a lot of trips with my wife, and then I also go on a couple bigger trips a year. I'm involved in a nonprofit called Snake Evolution and Biogeography. And it was started by a really dear friend of mine, Alex McKelvey. And the whole goal of the organization is kind of create, online communities to educate people, kind of create a conservation ethic around herping and snakes. And his background is in kind of phylo-biogeography. So kind of figuring out, species delimitation based on where you would find a snake. And a lot of that research really requires the deposition of specimens in museum collections. I mean, it used to be that when people found a snake, often they would kill it, which is unfortunate, but at least they would donate the body of the snake, to one of these museum collections. And we would kind of have this eternal record of, what were the genetics of the snake? What were its gut contents? What was its physiology? And that's largely gone by the wayside. Now everyone's just using citizen science platforms like iNaturalist to kind of post photos. Mm-hmm. So Alex and SEB's mission is really to kind of try to train people on specimen collection, tissue collection, and start trying to restock these museums with usable tissues so we can kind of understand how these animals work and what their sort of evolutionary history is. So we do 1 or 2 trips a year, usually with like 15 to 18 people, where we will all go out, and there's kind of a heavy field component, but there's also sort of a hands-on science component where we actually teach, how do you turn like, a road-killed snake into something that could end up in a museum and actually contribute to science. And so that's been really rewarding, and it's kind of always fun to get out with a big group like that, where people come from different backgrounds, have different levels of experience with herping, and kind of get in the field and show them the ropes.
So here's a question. What what is the ideal length of a trip? If you're going to leave your house, as somebody who does this as their hobby and their avocation, I can tell you that I've been on, and there's lots of people that look at what I do and are like, oh my God, he gets paid to go out and, but I can tell you at the end of 10 days of doing 14 hours a day, you get to that 9th day and you're kind of like, I'm ready to go home. So, but there's definitely a curve. And I can say for me, I can go solid 8 and still be in it to win it. But if you're trying to just keep this fun and uplifting and, what is your kind of like sweet spot?
Yeah. So I think like if it's a road trip, I really like the kind of like 4-day trip where maybe I extend a weekend on both sides, and it gives me enough time to kind of really explore a place, but it's not too much of a burden on Megan to manage the snake collection, and it's not too disruptive with work. So I think a lot of my trips are kind of that 4-day window. I also like a week-long trip. I think anything longer than a week, it starts to get difficult with the personal collection. Just
very good point.
Yeah. With a week, I feel comfortable walking away and not needing anybody to come in unless there's, eggs being laid or something special happening. I feel comfortable walking away for a week. It does mean a day of work on both sides of the trip. So I would say those are kind of the two sweet spots, like either the long weekend or the week away. Obviously longer is nicer, but it's just not always feasible with work and all that.
Gotcha. And so when you go out on said trip, are we sleeping in the car, Super 8, Holiday Inn, Verbo, Airbnb? Like, talk a little bit about just the kind of logistics of the actual trip. Because one thing that I didn't realize as someone that does this a lot is I have actually had people say, well, like, how much does it cost? And to me, it's like, well, you just do it, but at the same time, if you're got a budget, kind of knowing those numbers actually does help people a little bit. So
it can be pretty affordable, especially when you're doing it as a road trip. I'm not quite as Spartan as the folks who are willing to car camp and all that. I love Priceline. I think Priceline's the best tool for like a spur of the moment herp trip. You can get pretty good deals on really reasonable hotels where you're not worried that you're going to bring bed bugs home. That's always my big worry with the snake collection. Trying to treat bed bugs, I just imagine would be like such a nightmare. So I do a lot of Priceline. I think for bigger group trips or trips you're able to plan in advance, I like to do Airbnb a lot. Usually you can find pretty good deals for like a big space that accommodates a group, and you don't feel quite as sketchy bringing snakes home at the end of the night. I think generally on solo trips, I'm using Priceline, and a trip doesn't need to cost more than the gas to get down there and drive around. And you usually can get pretty reasonable hotels for like $80-$90 a night. Yeah.
And then food. I've talked to herpers where you go to Walmart, you buy a crap ton of granola and granola bars, and it's just, you're in the car, you're road cruising, you're eating, that's food. I've talked to other people who like to kind of have the dinner. Now, dinner may be at like 2 p.m. during the heat, who might want to eat sushi in the middle of the herping trip.
This guy.
Yeah. Because you got to eat when the animals aren't active. And sometimes when you normally would eat is when the animals are active. So can you just talk a little bit about like what a day in the field is like for you? Like we're past getting to country. You're waking up in the morning, you're where you need to be. Just kind of walk through that if you don't mind.
Yeah, so it varies a lot if I'm alone versus if Megan's with me. But when I'm alone, my typical kind of herping day is I love McDonald's breakfast. You always know what you're going to get. It's not going to hurt my stomach. It's going to be fine. So I almost always start the day with McDonald's breakfast when I'm herping. And then I usually try to subsist on like Cliff Bars and beef jerky and pumpkin seeds and just random snacks, because when I'm out in the field, I don't want to waste any time going to sit down to eat. It's kind of funny. My wife and I joke, like, it's like kind of a problem actually when I'm alone. Sometimes I will forget to even do that kind of bare minimum, and she'll call. It'll be like 4 p.m. I'm like, I feel terrible. Like, I feel like I'm gonna faint. She's like, well, did you eat today? No. So that's kind of where I'm at, is like I'm so willing to kind of forgo all that stuff if I'm having a good day in the field. All those needs kind of fall away.
Cool. And then what's the equipment, like your go-to kit that you're bringing? What is it?
Yeah, so it's a lot. So that's part of the reason I love road trips. It's getting hard because I've seen almost everything on the East Coast now. So like my trips are getting further and further west. But I really like when I can drive, because then I can bring everything I want to have. And it kind of starts with the car. Like, you want a good, reliable car that can handle some off-roading, has good ground clearance. Definitely recommend doing like custom lights. Like if you're planning to night cruise, it helps so much if you can see the road better. But other than that, it's kind of classic. I have snake hooks and snake tongs. I keep duct tape and lint rollers on me, especially if I'm going somewhere with a lot of ticks. I like to tape up the bottom of my pants and kind of use lint rollers in case I get tick bombed. Bug spray, headlights, good flashlights are necessary if you're doing anything at night. It's kind of dorky, but I like to wear high vis, especially if I'm road cruising at night. I feel a little safer if I've got a headlamp and a high vis vest on. And some places you need to, like West Texas, but
Yeah, Texas,
I think it's good practice anywhere, because road cruising is kind of dangerous. What else? I think having enough water and sunscreen and sometimes bug spray, bug nets on hand. That's always really important. You don't want to ruin your trip by getting super sunburn or chewed alive the first day you're out on a trip. I always wear pants. I like to wear thick pants in the field. I don't care how hot it is. I don't want to worry about walking through brambles or
that's
kind of the poison ivy.
You're better than me. I don't know why I can't do the pants, and it's been I've left so much blood across this country. And it's dumb, but I just don't like to be hot because I'm Sasquatch, and that's the way it is. So good
on that
you.
Note, first aid kits, good to have. You definitely want some kind of wet wipes. If you have a lot of snake musk on your hands, something to clean off your hands at the end of the day. Yeah.
Okay. And then we're about to see the product of this. Most herpers have a camera, because when you find the target, phones are actually pretty damn good now, I must admit. I went all the way to Costa Rica, drug my camera, and then I think I took 4 pictures with my DSLR, and everything else was on my damn phone. But what's your camera like? I know you got one.
So I do have one, but I almost never bring it in the field. It's kind of a shame. I use my phone for almost all my pictures. I had something I go back and forth on. It's just annoying lugging a camera around, and especially when you're solo, it's very, very hard to wrangle a snake and operate a DSLR camera with only 2 hands. So I really rely on my phone, and every year I mull over whether I should get more serious about photography. But
so you're just using your so those amazing pictures you're taking on your iPhone?
Yeah, I just use my iPhone.
That's awesome.
Holy hell. Okay.
I mean, it's the perfect thing. Like It's so much easier to use a phone while you're
It-
also
it
having
really
to manage a snake.
Mhm.
Yeah, no. I need a new phone, and actually, whichever one, iPhone, Droid, I don't care. Whichever one's got the better camera when the time comes, that's my deciding factor.
Yeah.
Well, let's bring up some pics from some of your trips. So,
Yeah, sounds great.
because this is kind of where all of this comes to fruition. So, we'll just go slide by slide here. So, if you're in your car, we've got a slide up that has a southern hognose, an eastern indigo, a southern pine, and an eastern diamondback, because, you know, we're not going to flex with the first slide at all.
Yeah, this was a pretty legendary trip. This was with
Yeah.
the SEB group, actually. Very fun. We went to North Florida in October 2024. And on my way down, I stopped in some sandhills in Georgia, and I spent like 10 hours day cruising. And I was literally getting ready to leave. I was parked like on my phone, charting the drive to my hotel, and I look up and that eastern diamondback crossed the path in front of me. So it was a lot of hard work for one snake, but it was a cool snake to see. And then I got down to northern Florida and joined the rest of the group, and a subset of us were out walking through some primary sandhill habitat, which is kind of rare. You know, sandhill habitat in general is rare, but to have sandhill that's always been sandhill, that's pretty hard to find.
Yeah, that's
So, I was the Simus, the southern hognose, are really associated with kind of bare mineral soil. It's one of their kind of habitat preferences. And so we were on trail. We weren't having any luck. I was on Google Maps looking at the satellite, and I identified like a little patch of like maybe 10 feet of bare mineral soil, and hiked out to that. And just like someone had planted it, there was just this, and that little Simus was right in the middle of this patch of sand. So I got really excited. I called my friends over, and one of my buddies his name's Peyton. He lives in California, and this was his first time herping Florida, I believe. And he's on his way out there, and the second tortoise burrow, he poked his head down. That eastern indigo was just maybe 2 or 3 feet inside the tortoise burrow.
good God.
Yeah, so I run over. I've got a Simus in my hand. I'm looking at an eastern indigo, and I don't know if it'll ever quite get better than that. But it was cool because one of the members in SEB, her job is actually to survey gopher tortoise burrows. And she had surveyed, I think, over 4,000 burrows at that point. She'd never seen an eastern indigo in a burrow.
Wow.
And my friend Peyton, his second burrow. But that's how it goes sometimes. But she was actually able to get permission, because she's permitted to scope these burrows. She was able to get permission to bring her equipment out to site and confirm the sighting of the eastern indigo. So that still is actually from a video of putting this probe, 30 feet down a tortoise burrow, and seeing the indigo inside is pretty cool. And then as we're driving out, our other friend in the other car comes across this pine snake. So it's pretty much all the big sandhill targets in one day. It was
That's pretty nice. Yeah. Great mix.
That does not happen in the 2020s.
not often.
So, that's super special. The only southern pine I have with all the travels I've done in Central Florida was actually, it was like a 6.5. I mean, bigger than I thought they get big. And we had driven down this road to get to a creek to sample crayfish. We sampled crayfish for like 15 minutes. And then when we drove back, it was still wiggling on the road. It had gotten hit. And so, and it was an enormous male. That is actually, of all the DORs that I had found, that's the one that hurt the most. So, okay, cool. So, Max, you there? Oh, here we go. Okay. Ooh. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Okay.
This was a fun trip. This was August of this year. Kind of a light monsoon this year, at least when we were there in August. I think maybe it picked up a little bit later, but This is probably the trip where I slept the least. I think I slept like under 10 hours in like 6 days. Like Arizona is dangerous because you can always be doing something. You know, if it's early in the morning, you can hike the desert, the low desert. If it's the middle of the day, you can hike at elevation. If it's early in the evening, you want to be cruising at higher elevations. And then as the night progresses, you can cruise the low desert pretty much all night long. So this was an awesome trip. I mean, we saw almost every one of our targets. The highlights, most of them are here. I think seeing Arizona Mountain Kings, that's something I've always wanted to see.
Yeah.
I came across this willardi in habitat eating a ornate tree lizard, which was super
insane.
Cool.
That's awesome.
And I don't know if you can really tell. I actually think it had multiple food boluses already.
Yeah,
so.
it looks like
it. Yeah. Yep.
So he was doing well for himself. I think we ended up seeing like 4 willardi and maybe 18 lepidus.
Yeah, that's the banded rock rattlesnake for those who don't know what lepidus is.
Appreciate that.
Those are cool because they're super variable out there. So you get ones with these like greens, these pinks, different amounts of banding.
They're my favorite of the montane, of the small rattlesnakes.
Yeah, they're little live wires. They don't love to cooperate with pictures, but they are very fun to see. And then saw coral snakes, blacktail rattlesnakes out there are absolutely beautiful, like really yellow and black. Saw a couple more mountain kings, desert king snakes, Chihuahuan hooknose. I think we saw probably close to 25 species on that trip. So it was really
Tell me about the corals. Were they just out on the road, or did you find more than one?
Just the one coral. It was on the road, one of the more famous roads down there. And it was very twitchy, really hard to try to keep it on the road for pictures. But that was actually my first ever coral snake, first ever elapid.
Oh, really?
I've still not seen the eastern or the Texas coral, at least alive. So
did it do the cloacal popping?
Not that I noticed, but it did a lot of weird kind of tail twitching, kind of like a mud snake. It kind of curled its tail up and really interesting, really erratic movement. Nothing I've ever seen. My
son loves the desert. And his first time I took him to the desert was in the summer of 24. We went to this thing called the terrestrial invertebrate tag for AZA. They always have their meeting in Tucson during the first week of the monsoon. So I tell everybody jokingly, I go out herping and then I go to a meeting on the side because, we get out there and they have this big event where all the bug people, we descend on this state park, and it's amazing because they've got permission to basically, like, the rangers are right there with us, which is pretty awesome. So you can kind of, not that you run amok, but you essentially run amok. They got the light sheets up too, which is super cool. With the bugs. But I was out looking for stuff, and I walked by my son, and he was like, "Hey, there was a snake here." And I was like, "What was it?" He was like, "Oh, it's not a big deal." I was like, "Okay." Well, I kept on going, because we had seen a bunch of Atrox, Western Diamondback rattlesnakes. And then I came back, and the other professor who went with me is like on the ground trying to move this boulder that's bigger than our car. I was like, "What's going on, Matt?" He's like, "Colin found a coral snake." I was like, "What?" It's not that big a deal. And here he thought I was going to yell at him because he didn't catch it. And I'm like, "Bud, I would have yelled at you if you caught it." like we're okay. So that's the closest I've come to a coral. I've always the one that's in Arizona. I'm always like 20 minutes behind someone finding one. So I'm super jealous of that. Very cool. Okay, Max, next. Oh, more.
Yeah, some more Arizona. So I was so impressed by Southern Arizona, not just the snakes, but the landscape. I mean, there's
it's beautiful.
There's all these mountain ranges down there, and every single one looks different, and everyone is just gorgeous. And so my wife got sick of hearing me talk about it, so we planned a quick trip out there. Unfortunately, I was like sick the whole trip, so the herping was a little bit limited, but we had one really magical day where we hiked one of the canyons out there, and we saw a couple of the rock rattlesnakes. Hiked up this, it's hard to tell scale from that picture, but that was a big adult knoblauchi.
Yeah.
Just out on the crawl in the middle of the day in one of these canyons. And I got excited. I picked it up. I brought it down to the creek bed to show my wife, and then just kind of set it up for a picture. And I walk over to this stump in the creek bed, and that little willard eye was posted up right on the stump I wanted to take pictures on. So
Ridge-nosed rattlesnake, if you don't know what that is.
So that's cool. Really small, young of the year. Really scared of that king snake, I think.
He would have eaten him in a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah. The other highlight, I mean, it's not a snake, but seeing a Gila monster is like something I've dreamed about since I was a little child. So that was super cool.
Cool.
Just drove up on him crossing the road.
All righty. All right. Let's do two more. Okay. Here we go.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the one I was jealous of.
Yeah, this is pretty nice.
I was stuck in meetings while I was looking at Christian posting all these southern hognose snake pictures.
Yeah, this was a super fun trip, and kind of going back to like, you know, watching conditions and spur of the moment. That was very much this. You know, I'd been watching the weather in this specific area of Georgia for conditions that would be good to get the Simus moving. And I'd been seeing a lot of my friends finding baby pine snakes. So I was a little bit hopeful that we would actually get some pine snakes as well. So I took a spur of the moment trip down to Sandhills in Georgia, and I was alone for the first 2 days. And then one of my friends, Alex, joined from Tallahassee. And it's a lot of cruising. I mean, you got to kind of have a thick skin for driving in circles and staring at sand, but it really paid off. We saw, I think, 12 or 13 southern hognose, all different, you know, sizes from little babies, you know, born that year to big adult females. Saw three pine snakes.
That's cool.
All were the young of the year. I think one of them was a yearling. Saw a great big adamantius. I mean, like thick as my legs. It was just like one of the bigger snakes I've ever seen in the wild. Very cool to see. I don't know. It doesn't always happen that way. Right? You know, the sandhills can be pretty fickle. Like you're just as likely to see nothing. But when you time it right, it can be pretty awesome, and definitely paid off that trip.
Very cool. Okay, next, Max. If we don't mind. All right. Ooh. Now, if there's any snake I think Christian's known for, it's this one. So rainbow snakes are, many people don't have rainbow snakes on their life list. And Christian has about 30. I don't even know how many. So if you don't mind, just talk a little bit about, you know, these guys, and more specifically, not that I want you to give, because one of the like cardinal sins of herping is we don't give away sites and everything, right. But just kind of the secret for just seeing them, if that,
yeah.
I mean, not even the secret, but technique. So, because I still haven't seen one of these, and this is probably tied as my number one target, period.
Yeah, this was a fun one. So I have a really good friend named Sam, who I do a lot of kind of duo herping with, and rainbow snakes are really kind of our thing. We go to the, you know, the Outer Banks, Inner Banks region of North Carolina a lot. This particular animal was actually in Maryland, which made it extra cool.
Yeah.
But which as a side note, I actually met the state zoologist from Maryland when I was in Arizona, and he's actively working on rainbow snakes. So I actually got to give him a lot of data and kind of contribute to what he's got going on. So that was kind of a cool chance coincidence. But yeah, they have a reputation for being really tricky. I think they're actually kind of predictable. They're possibly obligatory eel eaters. Definitely eels make up a very large part of their diet. And so the trick to finding rainbow snakes is finding eels in a lot of cases. Most of these guys were finding at night. I think shining, rocky riffraff kind of stuff that eels like is really kind of the bread and butter for finding rainbow snakes. But we also can flip them under natural cover, kind of in similar habitat. I've also seen them crossing roads near similar habitat. So there's not just like one way to find them, but the key is to kind of understand their activity periods and then those kind of micro habitats where the eels are very abundant. And they seem to share habitat. Like if you see a lot of Taxus pelota or
brown water snakes.
Yeah. Or depending on where you are, like common water snakes or banded water snakes, they do seem to have similar habitat preferences. I've seen all those. I've seen a lot of common water snakes and a couple of fasciata eating eels as well. So it's not always easy. I think they're like, for such a vibrant snake, they can be kind of hard to pick out. Especially when they're so good at swimming and kind of cruising through those little rock piles. Seeing one is probably less than half the battle. Like if you actually want to catch it, that's a whole nother ball game, especially when you see them in the water. Like, good luck. I think it's really like research goes a long way. Like if you've got a target like rainbow snakes, it's almost easier when they kind of have these hyper specific needs. It makes it a little easier to kind of dial in on where they are. It's actually a little harder sometimes to target some of the more generalist snakes.
No, there's nothing better than, like, this is one thing I would say that you get with herping. You have these kind of victories with keeping, but it's a very different win. But there's just something to be said about, like, you go onto Google Earth. First of all, you learn the biology and the natural history of the animal, and then you kind of come up with a search image. Then you go on and try to find it, from like me sitting here in West Virginia, looking at Kansas. I remember when I did the Kansas trip, which was one of the best trips I ever did. Didn't find Nascus, found everything else. But some of those sites that I went to, I distinctly remember thinking, man, we're probably going to get some, Plains Milks here. And then we did. And when that all kind of comes together and it ends with the snake in your hand, that phrase, it's the journey, not the destination. Mm-hmm. Like that really comes, there's so much more than just grabbing the snake. Because when you put in all that effort and then you find the snake, it goes just a completely different level of satisfaction. I don't even know. It's a massive endorphin hit. So anyway, can you talk a little about the Tantilla there?
Yeah, so like, believe it or not, I was way more excited about that Tantilla than that rainbow snake. It's actually from Virginia. So very, very few Tantilla observations from Virginia. And my friend Sam and I had done a lot of research, kind of narrowed in where we thought they might be. We had a pretty good idea of what their habitat was like. And just on a personal note, I had taken a lot of trips trying to find this snake. The snake was kind of one of my bogey snakes.
Explain this snake to people that don't know what a Tantilla is. How big is it?
Very small, unassuming brown snake.
Clint's favorite.
Yeah, incredibly fossorial. Like very limited surface activity at all. So looking for these guys usually involves a lot of turning over rocks and logs. And their diets are thought to be pretty specialized. It depends a little bit species to species, but with Coronata, I believe they're mostly known to be centipede eaters. And the genus generally is known to be centipede eaters, but some of them are actually a little more general than people think. But these guys are very elusive. Like even in places where they're abundant, they're very hard to find. And so it was really special to go to a place where they're pretty rare and to finally get that monkey off my back and find one with my buddy Sam. It was very exciting.
Very cool. And then the final snake, I believe, is a hog. Is that correct?
It is. Yeah, that was
I couldn't even
also
tell
in
what that
Maryland.
was. Yeah, I'm like, I've been staring at it. I'm like, I just can't tell by the head. It's a small picture from what I'm looking at, right here. Like, what the hell is that?
It's kind of funny. It's kind of funny seeing platyrinos in the field when you don't have the search image for them, because you're used to pictures where they've got the ventral spreading, they've got the hood out. Often they're playing dead in pictures. So when you come across one that's just kind of on the crawl and not in a thread display, especially when it looks like that, you're like, was that a fat racer?
Mm-hmm.
Was that a rat snake? What am I looking at? But yeah, that was also in Maryland, very, very close to where that rainbow snake was found. And that's a snake, like locally, they're present in Southern Ohio, very hard to find. I used to spend a lot of time looking for them, and I did the math one time, and I think I found one for every like 55 effort hours or something. So very tough snake to target, just a cool snake to come across.
Sure. Okay. So thank you for that. That was fantastic. We're nearing our 2-hour mark. I'm very curious, given your avid keeper, avid herper, entering grad school for this stuff too now. So what do you think the future? Do you like what you think of when or like what you're seeing with the trajectories of herpetoculture? Do you think we're in a good trajectory, bad trajectory from where we were? Just kind of spill Christian's ideas on the state of herpetoculture and where it's going.
Yeah. Well, first off, please don't try to collect Francia. Like, do not collect rainbow snakes and mud snakes. Please don't.
There
it's
is
just
no
a waste of time. You're just going to kill the animal.
Yes.
Got to get that out there after talking about how to find them.
Absolutely.
I think generally my outlook's mostly positive. I think I'm in a kind of position, I'm in my mid-30s now, and I've kind of got to interact with both the generation before me and the generation after me, which is kind of fun because you get the perspective of people who've been keeping a long time, and you get to see kind of a pulse on where things are going. And I think a lot of the kind of differences between the old school and the new school are maybe not as severe as advertised. Like I think we all have the kind of same goals, and I think there's actually a lot of common ground that we could build on. And I really hope people who have been in this hobby for a long time try to lean in and embrace younger keepers and take them under their wing. I know, like for me, that's been huge. I've got a lot of friends who've kept snakes for as long as I've been alive, and I've learned so much from them. So I really appreciate people who take the time to be mentors. I think what's tough is, the laws. That's one thing I have kind of a dim view on. I just think the trend will be more restrictive, especially in terms of collecting wild animals, which, is good and bad. There's certainly snakes that need more protection than they have. Also, though, for the health of the hobby, like there are snakes where we could use more genetic diversity in the hobby. So I don't know. I mean, I'm worried we're kind of going to keep on an upward trend where things are a little bit more restrictive every year. For good and bad. Like you said with the Simus, I am 100% on board with them being listed. You go to a place like Southern Georgia where they're abundant, and you're driving out there and you're passing all these phosphate mines, these new growth / pine,
timber farms,
and you're like, oh my God, like that little magic, 5-mile grid, that used to be all of this, and now it's all gone. I mean, like that population is doing well now, but while we were out there, we probably saw at least 5 DOR Simus. I just have to think over time, like, time's not going to be good to those smaller populations. So it's hard. It's hard to balance kind of wanting to be a conservationist and also kind of enjoying captive keeping of reptiles. And I don't think they always need to be at odds, but I think we should all of us that kind of wear both those hats should, think about both sides of the coin more. Locality keeping is another one. I'm not against locality keeping. That would make me a huge hypocrite. I have a couple locality snakes. I sell locality snakes, but things like that, I think, we need to have some kind of critical eye on what we're doing, especially as collection is further restricted by laws. I think, genetic diversity is much harder to maintain if you're trying to keep locality pure lines. And I think there's a value to it, but we need to weigh kind of the long-term health of our captive populations against that. Yeah, I don't know, I'm rambling, but I think overall, I think I like what I'm seeing from other keepers. I think, media like what you guys do with this podcast, events like Colubrid Fest, I think are such a good positive influence on the community. I hate some of the content I see, on Instagram and Facebook, and I think most of the people who are really invested in this hobby kind of share that view, which I think is the optimistic side. My only worry is I think externally there's some kind of intrinsic entertainment value where people are latching onto that kind of stuff more and not really seeing the good we do. So like you guys promote, I just think, get on Instagram, show your cool bioactive naturalistic enclosures, promote. Everyone needs to kind of promote the good side of this hobby and kind of drown out some of that noise.
Very well said.
Damn, man.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with it, man.
Yeah, that was fantastic. All right. Well, yeah, thanks for coming on. This was wonderful.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I really
thoroughly enjoyed this one. So if people want to pick up the snake, see your collection, I know you have a social media presence. So where do people go to see more field pictures, captive pictures, and then possibly pick up an animal from you in the future?
Yeah, so Instagram's the best place to get a hold of me. I've got an account that's select.snakes. It's supposed to be my storefront Instagram. To my wife's chagrin, it's mostly my field herping pics. Much better about posting those. Mm-hmm. And I can be reached there through DMs. I've also got a Facebook just under my name. I'm not quite as active on Facebook, but I can be reached there as well. And if any of what I said about SEB resonates with anybody, please let me know. We've got a pretty active online Discord community. We kind of curate the snake identification subreddit. And so we would always love to get more people involved. If you've kind of got more of an academic interest, you want to kind of understand more about, evolutionary biology, things like that.
But let me know. Share what SEB stands for. And
yeah, it's snake evolution and biogeography. And if anyone wants to get involved, reach out. I'll get you a link to our Discord. That's the kind of easiest way. Our trips, we kind of restrict them to the people who are more known entities at this point, but eventually I think we're going to make the trips a little bit more widely accessible. So if you want to get kind of hands-on experience, if you want to be a biologist as a profession, like it's a great group to kind of get in with and start building those field skills. So just reach out.
Perfect. Okay, Clint.
If you want to find me, you can message us at metazotics@gmail.com. Of course, check out everything we have available at metazotics.com. As always, if you pick up anything, use coupon code CC Radio at checkout. Save yourself 5%. Otherwise, feel free to message us on Facebook, Metazotics, or Instagram, MetazoticsLLC.
Boom. For me, Zac Loughman on Facebook, Dr. Crawdad on Instagram. If you want to reach out to me, I have the book. I've got more copies of the dipsatted book that I wrote for South America. So makes a great Christmas gift for the snake nerd in your family because I wrote it for them. So with that being said, fire off a message and I can get that out to you. And if you're interested in grad school, right now the slots are pretty much filled up. But I'm already thinking about the students that I will be onboarding. I'm trying to do the math in the spring and fall of 2027. I cannot believe time is flying, but the first Iowa batch, we're actually going over data. That's going to be one of the science updates coming up here shortly, which is we found some really killer stuff. So with that being said, that's it. So be it morning, evening, afternoon, or night, whatever time of day it is, have a great one, and we look forward to seeing you again on the next Colubrid and Colubroid Radio.